Okay, I'm glad. All right, so now we will continue with our class from yesterday. Okay, I hope that you have revised. Do you have any questions before we start?
Miss, I actually studied this chapter a lot in depth yesterday, and I
Okay,
was wondering if we could focus on language, thought, and communication.
thought and communication. Okay, no problem. Hold on, let me bring it up. So, do you have any questions before we continue with thought and communication?
Um, I was wondering if we could do. I did I understood everything up until linguistic, um, uh, linguistic determinism. I think I need a little bit of help on like the features of language, like communication with animals and
Okay.
Boroditsky and Yuki et al.
All right, hold on, yeah. So first you said okay, so what is the thing that you want to go through again?
Could we go through features of language, animal communication, um, Yuki et al. And Boroditsky?
Okay. So um all right. Mm, okay, so do you which one do you want to start with?
Should we start with um, the should we start with the um, the studies first, Boroditsky and Yuki et al.
Okay? All right. So we can start with Yuki et al, or how about we start with the first case, yeah? Can you tell
Yes.
me what you know or what you remember about it?
Yuki et al.
Either one.
Oh, okay. So basically, I know that Yuki et al. Is that they concluded that Japanese students used like the difference in eyes to judge emotions, whereas Americans or Western people used mouth positions more than Japanese people did. So this like supported the ideas that like different cultures view different facial cues differently, and uh, um, yeah.
Okay, do you want to go through the case following the structure that we usually use?
Um, I'm not quite familiar with like the entire structure of Yuki et al. So I was hoping we could go through it together.
I see. Okay. So so when we are talking about case studies, what do we start with?
The background first.
Yeah. So do you know anything about the background?
Um, I know that they wanted to like they wanted to s- like they because Japan is a collectivistic culture, and the America is a in is it an individual culture? I'm not sure, but um basically they wanted to see like the aims of this was like they wanted to see if facial cues are used differently to interpret emotions depending on cultural background.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a good start. So just before we continue, right?
Mhm.
Do you want to go through the other case studies like Piaget's and the others, or
I'm fine with Piaget and
okay?
Vygotsky.
Okay, and so we are just going through this part, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and also, do you have the printouts that I sent to your mom?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. All right. So, um, okay. So starting with Yuki et al. Yeah. Are the windows to the soul the same in the east and the west? Yeah. So
Mm-mm.
what Yuki et al. Was looking at, or basically the background to it, is that there is a growing interest in cultural differences in non-verbal communication. Yeah. So do you know the difference between verbal and non-verbal?
Like verbal communication is when you use like language to communicate, um, to
Mm-hmm.
exchange
Mm-hmm.
information with one another, and non-verbal communication is things like that we show through our like our facial cues, our body language, our eye contact, and things like that.
Okay, yeah. So, in this case, we are looking at non-verbal communication, right? So,
Yeah.
research was trying to identify how much non-verbal communication is international and how much varies between cultures. Yeah. So, some differences are actually well known. For example, do you know, um, what would be well known? What differences they would be?
Uh, in what, like the difference between nonverbal and verbal?
How it varies between cultures.
Oh, like um, I could give an example,
Yeah.
but it's like, for example, like in oh in like for example in Asian countries, if someone is talking to you and you nod your head, it shows that you're listening. However, like in Western cultures, if you do that same thing, it could be seen as someone agreeing with you. So it's like different interpretations because of different cultures.
Okay, yeah, very good. Okay, and also, it could be, for example, in most Western cultures, people are aware that it is acceptable to openly show your feelings. However, in some Asian cultures, it is important to subdue those emotions as far as possible. Yeah. Okay, so the aim was basically to investigate whether emotions are interpreted using a focus on the eyes or the mouth. Yeah, so they
Okay.
wanted to find out if cultures where emotions are subdued, such as Japan, would focus on the eyes compared to America. Would they focus on the mouth?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for the first experiment, yeah, the procedure, um emoticons are facial expressions created by what?
By um like it's like the colons and like the brackets and stuff.
Yeah, so
Or
by
like
computer symbols. Yeah.
mm,
So for example, in America, yeah,
yeah.
the semicolon and the close bracket that would denote happiness, and the other way would denote unhappiness. Whereas in Japan, um I'll just send it to you. You know the cute little emoticon,
Yeah, like
like
with the
this one.
eyes, like yeah,
Yeah.
like that.
So this one would denote happiness, and like another cute emoji would denote sadness.
Mm.
Okay. All right. So these emoticons highlight the American focus on the mouth, and Japan focuses on the eyes.
Mm.
Okay. So the procedure was the sample. The participants consisted of 118 students,
Okay.
33 male, 85 female from Ohio State University, and 95 Japanese students, 72 male and 21 female, yeah, from Hokkaido University. So all the participants volunteered to take part. Okay, the American and Japanese participants were shown the same computer generated um, emoticons,
Mm-hmm.
and they were instructed to complete a questionnaire to rate the emotional expression of the emoticons on a scale of 1 extremely sad to 9 extremely happy.
Mm-mm.
So there were 6 different emoticons, so you can look up on like the 6 different ones later. Yeah, the
Okay.
results were do you know what the results were?
I think a Japanese student rated the emoticons as happier than when the happiness was more focused around the eyes, but Americans thought that it was more sadder. Like, yeah.
Okay, so Japanese gave happier for happier eyes, and American was for happier mouths.
Mm.
Okay,
Okay.
so when the emoticons included a neutral expression of either eyes or mouth in a combination, there was a difference in rating scores between groups. So American participants gave higher happiness rating scores to emoticons with happier mouths, whereas Japanese participants higher happiness rating scores to emoticons with happier eyes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So um where they had conflicting expressions, yeah, so such as sad eyes and happy mouth, or happy eyes and sad mouth, there was also a difference. So Japanese gave higher scores to happier eyes, Americans gave higher scores to happier mouths. So remember that the higher scores means they think that it's happier.
Mm.
Okay, so the conclusion, right? Yuki et al. Concluded that the Japanese gave more consideration to the cues from the eyes when weighing up the emotion of the symbol, whereas American cues from the mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this does raise the issue that American participants were not able to interpret the happy eye symbols in the emoticons as well as the Japanese were able to. Yeah.
Okay.
So it may have led to differences in results because of this. So in 2007, there was a replica of this study using photographs of real people expressing emotions to eliminate this variance. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
So then there was a second experiment. Okay, so there were participants again from Ohio State University and Hokkaido, and the photographs were edited using a computer software program. Yeah, they were shown a total of 60 faces, and each face appeared for 10 seconds, and participants had to rate the emotion using the scale from the first experiment, so the same scale. Okay.
Okay.
Right. When they were looking at the results, what they found was that the results replicated the first study, the first experiment.
Oh, so like the results were the same.
Yeah, the results were the same. Okay, so the conclusion is that the study supported the findings of experiment 1 because Japanese gave more consideration to the cues from the eyes, whereas Americans gave more consideration to the cues from the mouth. Okay, so although there was a difference in the happiness rating scores between the participants that replicated experiment 1, the happiness ratings were often inconsistent.
Mm.
So this then indicated to Yuki et al. That there's more than interpretation of eyes or mouth when they judge happiness or sadness from facial expressions. Okay,
Okay.
all right. So what are the strengths and weaknesses of this study?
Um. I think since that it was it was the study was repeated again and showed the same results, doesn't it like have external validity? So therefore, it the gen it this like increases the generalizability of the study.
Okay, okay, good.
And
Yeah.
um, like for the first study, would a weakness be like um because they didn't use real faces, it might be very subjective. But like the second one, like when they did the second one, there was no difference, but it could have affected the results.
Yep. Anything else?
Um, yeah, that's all I have.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, you do have some points, right? So the strength of the study is the study gave the first one, yeah, it gave good evidence that there are cultural differences, yeah,
Mhm.
it when we are looking at non-verbal communication, and the study was also very controlled, yeah, because
Yeah.
remember where was this study done?
Was it like in a lab, like an artificial environment?
Yeah, therefore studies are, I mean, results are likely to be more,
Controlled,
therefore more.
reliable.
Very good. Yeah. So remember grave analysis. Yeah. Try to do it for all the studies, even if we don't discuss it in that manner. Try to do it
Okay.
yourself. Yeah. Grave. Okay. So limitations of the study, ecological validity. There are
Yeah.
very few, if any, ethical studies with ethical issues with this study, um, because participants were only looking at emoticons rather than real faces. Yeah, the
Okay.
sample is not representative of an international population. So yes, they had a um, good split between I mean they had both genders, yeah, and they also have um, both Western and Eastern, but it is still only from two countries, yeah. So
Yeah.
participants were also within a specific age group, yeah. So younger or older people may interpret the emotions differently,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So not enough generalizability,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also the last limitation or weakness of the study is because the rating scale, I think this can be applied to both studies, yeah, because the scale in which they rated the emotions were the same, right? So we question as to whether that rating scale is enough to cover the complexity of recognizing emotions.
But on one hand, I think like if you, because I believe this is like a close-ended questionnaire, so I think like it would generate quantitative data. So wouldn't that be like more convenient for this type of study?
It would be more convenient, however it may not capture um, the the fact of whether these participants are able to recognize emotions, yeah,
Oh, okay.
because it's still a very limited scale in itself, yeah. So there
Yeah.
are pros and cons. So remember when we are looking at something very complex and we use a method that is too simple, then there are limitations to that as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Mm,
Okay, so make sure that you have gotten that down, okay, and then we can continue, all right?
thank you. Miss, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they were to do this, like, let's say they were to do this experiment, but with open-ended questions, would that increase the reliability of the study, or would it just not have any effect on the study?
You can actually argue like both ways. So why do you think it would increase the reliability?
I think it because it's like qualitative, it's giving us qualitative data, and this could give us more more of an idea of more like a less general idea of what they think. So it's not like limited the close-ended questionnaire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So technically it would affect the reliability of the study, but I feel like it would be it would be very hard to like generalize everything.
Yeah,
for this
yeah.
type.
So you can argue what you said, and you can also say because it will be so specific to those individuals answering the
Mhm.
question, then it cannot be too generalized because
Mm.
it is unique to each individual, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I did mention like you should uh have like a grave analysis, right?
Yes.
For all of them. So how
Mm.
about you try to give me the grave analysis for the 2007, the second one.
Um, for I think for my syllabus, I think we only have the first one.
You only
If
have the first one? Okay.
yeah, is the wait? It's 2007. The 2007 one, is it the one with the real faces or
Real faces.
oh, like here I'm quite confused because here it says Yuki et al 2007, but it's only talking about like the emoticons.
The emoticons? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No worries. So it's okay. You can you do the grave analysis for that one then?
Yeah, 10.
So based on what you told me, I do have an idea of like what it is and which one they're talking about. So we'll just do that, okay? So what
Okay.
is the grave analysis starting from G, generalizability? Okay. Once you finish that, just pause so that we can discuss that one first, okay?
Okay. So um uh okay, so since this experiment was repeated without emoticons and using real faces this time, I would say that it has generalizability because the results like remain the same, and this shows that like it could apply um, to most people, and reliability.
Okay, so
Yeah.
starting with generalizability, usually
Mhm.
when we are looking at this, right, we are looking at the
Mhm.
participants. Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
remember, it's similar to just now what we mentioned. So the
Mhm.
sample of students was not very representative. So
Mhm.
firstly, they only used like one narrow age group of students. Yeah. So
Mhm.
it can't be generalized to young children or older people.
Mhm.
Okay. Um,
And that's like it's not the same number of male and females also.
Yeah, but the number is actually quite not too unbalanced. Like some studies,
Yeah.
they are only male, only female. So that one
Mhm.
is a stronger argument for
Okay.
those studies. Yeah, but for
Okay.
this one, the strongest argument for generalizability is that they only have one narrow age group of
Okay.
students. Okay, how about reliability?
Um, Liability. Um, it was repeated the second time. So and the results showed the same thing as the first experiment. So could that be considered reliable?
Yes, so if there is supporting case study, yes, that
Mm-hmm.
is very good. Any other thing, whether this is reliable, whether this particular case study, whether that's reliable.
Um. mm, oh. It was a it was done in an artificial environment, so um, all extraneous variables could be controlled, and this can establish a cause and effect.
Okay, yes, yes, very good. Okay, so basically, standardized procedure, same
Mm-hmm.
emoticons for everyone, so
Mm-hmm.
highly controlled and therefore reliable. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, next one.
um A is application, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it can be applied because this experiment was repeated again and showed the same results, and it can be it can show like it can help identify that there are like it can show good evidence that there are cultural differences between like different cultures, and see like how people perceive emotions differently.
Very good. Okay, next one.
Validity, um, because it was repeated and it showed the same results. I would say it has external validity, and it's also um, valid because um, how do I because it has the use of quantitative data, so that would be it would be very like quantitative data is good, so that um what's it called, like it's more, I can't say accurate, it's like it's easier to read, so you could base your conclusion on that.
Anything else?
Yeah, that's all I have for now.
Okay. All right. So I think you understand it quite well. So we
Yeah,
yeah.
I have one more. It lacks ecological validity
Mhm.
because it's an artificial environment.
Okay, yes, yes, and also because the study used fake 2D emoticons, not
Mm-hmm.
real 3D faces. Yeah?
Okay.
And um did you say anything about the dependent variable?
No, I didn't
Okay,
see.
so you could say that it was measured very simply as well. So
Mm-hmm.
measuring emotions very complex, right? So remember
Mm-hmm.
how we said that it may not be reliable to measure them on a 1 to 9 scale. Therefore, this
Mm-hmm.
may not be valid. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about ethics? I think you mentioned it, but just repeat what you said.
Um, ethics. Um, mm, is it is it because they only chose students, and like it probably would not apply for, wait, no, that's not ethics. Um, I'm not sure about like the ethical issues for this one, because it seems like,
Yeah. So you could just say there are no ethical issues.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
that's the first.
yeah, I think we have done quite a few that doesn't actually have any ethical issues, and I think we mentioned this before, but like I said earlier, hopefully going forward we would have little to no ethical issues when it
Yeah.
comes to these studies. um yeah, so that's basically it. Yeah, so make sure you have all this written down and then we can continue, all right?
Okay. I think it's like so hard to find a study that doesn't like have ethical issues.
I think in the past maybe yes, but
Yeah.
as we move forward and we understand how like having all these ethical issues would not just bring about a lot of
Mm-mm.
lawsuits, it will
Oh,
also
yeah.
bring a lot of like consequences. I think we are trying to like put all of these in place. Yeah.
I think like the old ones, like was it
Yeah.
Milgram?
Yeah.
Milgram, and
That was one of the worst.
that was the worst.
Yeah.
So like I think like as people like um oh, and was it not Haney, Banks, and Zimbardo also, right?
Mm.
Yeah. I
So
think
all those
like
are the old ones.
yeah, and this one is quite recent. This one is 2007.
7. Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully no more electric shocks and Zoom. Miss, how would they know, like, like when these researchers start to plan like their experiments, like how would they know like which like methods of like which research methods to use for their research?
Oh, that
Because it's like,
actually falls under like research methods. Have you gone through that before?
oh yeah, I have, but
Yeah, so you
yeah,
can
it's
actually
hard
look.
to
Yeah,
read from the book.
yeah.
Mm,
So the thing that you learned probably
mm,
would be like a very very shallow or surface on the
mm,
surface, but yeah, later on if you take it in like A levels you learn more about it, and
mm,
like if you learn further on, then yeah.
mm. I think it's quite interesting, like, and I've always wondered, like, do they have to do like a lot of trial and error? Because like maybe like certain research methods would not be as effective as other ones, so maybe they would have to do trial and error.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like that must have taken a while.
And not necessarily. Sometimes if they are like good in research, yeah,
Mhm.
then they wouldn't have to try and error. They would just come up with like a good research method.
Mm. Difference. Okay, Miss, I'm done.
All right, very good. So now we'll move on, yeah, to the next part. So it is argued that the way in which a language is structured may
Mhm.
actually affect how its speakers perceive things. Yeah, I'm not sure if you know this before learning about this, but I think this was in a TED talk. Um, so some evidence does suggest that language is influential in shaping our understanding of the world, and that our view of the world is affected by the language that we use. So
Like linguistic rel- relativism.
yeah, that's what we're going into now. So what does this theory suggest?
It suggests that English speakers like think of time as like past, present, future. So it's like more of like ahead, like before and after. Whereas Mandarin speakers talk about time as up and down. So like early events would be like up, and later events would be like down.
Okay, yes, so those are very specific examples. So let's just define it first, right? So this theory suggests that we see and
Mhm.
interpret the world in terms of how our languages make us see things in a different way. Okay,
Mm.
so
Oh, are we doing the theory or Boroditsky?
the theory first.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, all right. So Brown and Lenneberg,
Mhm.
um, can you tell me more about that?
Uh, Brown and
Lenneberg. Okay, so they suggested the hypothesis that is what hypothesis?
uh, I haven't actually heard about this study before or the theory.
Okay, how about the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis?
Oh, like the weak wharf and the strong wharf?
Uh huh.
Oh, so basically he stated that. So this like hypothesis was proposed by um a few people in the 1950s, quite like a while back, and they proposed the idea of linguistic relativism, which is the idea that language affects our view of the world. And linguistic relativism is known as the weak worth, which means that we tend to see the world in the way our language describes it, and uh, not like um, and yeah,
Okay, and what's the opposite of that?
linguistic determinism.
And what is that?
Linguistic determinism is like the idea that language limits our view of the world. So this would be the strong morph.
Yes. Okay, very good. All right, so now we move on, to the case, of Boroditsky. So
Mhm.
can you tell me a little bit about what you know?
Um, so, um, Boroditsky's study is basically like evidence of linguistic relativism. So they wanted to test linguistic relativism, and basically, Boroditsky like showed that language about time affects how time is perceived in different languages. So, for example, in for English speakers, they see time as before and after, whereas Mandarin speakers would see time as up and down. So, like, yeah, and yeah,
Okay, anything else?
um, and I think the aim was see they wanted to test linguistic relativism and wanted to see whether like different languages would show this, like, yeah.
Okay, so I think you have like a strong understanding of the background. Okay,
Mm,
so moving on to the aim, it was to
okay.
investigate whether language shape conceptions of time in Mandarin and English speakers. Okay, so
Okay.
Boroditsky investigated whether the use of spatial metaphors. What is spatial metaphors?
um I'm not sure.
Okay, so he um spatial metaphors means um the metaphors that have space as their source domain, and they
Okay.
map the image schematic structure of that space. um okay, how about I give you. So spatial metaphors includes concepts of time, maybe musical pitch,
Mm,
number, stuff like that.
yeah.
Okay, all right. So that's a whole can of worms. But yeah,
Mhm.
he wanted to investigate whether use of spatial metaphors to talk about time would have immediate and long term implications on how people thought about time.
Yeah.
So what was the procedure?
um I know he used like horizontal and vertical priming, but I'm not really sure like the specifics of the procedure.
Okay, so the sample, right? The participants, 26 native English speakers and
Okay.
20 native Mandarin speakers, all graduate or undergraduate students at Stanford University. Yeah.
Okay.
So when we are listening to who were the participants, what is the first thing we think of?
um is it the age group?
It's the generalizability. Yeah,
Oh,
you start
yes.
to analyze it immediately. Okay,
Yeah.
so each participant was tested in English, questions
Mhm.
shown on computer screen.
Okay.
So you know about the horizontal and vertical spatial prime already, right? So
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so they answered two spatial prime questions, followed by target question about time. Okay.
Okay.
So the priming materials was scenario with a brief description that was either horizontal or vertical, and they had to respond by pressing a key on the keyboard for true or false as quickly as possible within a 5-second time limit. And then the response times were recorded. So half of the target questions were spatial temporal. Yeah, so it was designed to test the immediate effect, okay, of the spatial prime, and involve horizontal time-based questions. So what would horizontal time-based questions be?
Would it be like showing like it's like they show like, for example, like something in front of something, and they write like a statement, and then you say like true or false to that statement.
Yeah, so basically, for example, March comes before April. Yeah, so this would be horizontal time based questions. Okay, the other half designed to test the longer term impact of language. So they ask purely temporal questions. For example, March is
Uh,
earlier than April.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So what are the results?
Um. Uh. The,
Okay, so
it showed that. Um.
so there are quite a
So,
few results actually. All right, so let's go through them together. All right.
okay.
So both groups responded to spatial temporal target questions quicker following horizontal primes compared to vertical primes. English
Okay.
and Mandarin speakers affected in different ways by the prime when answering purely temporal questions.
Yeah.
Okay. English speakers answered purely temporal questions more quickly, yeah, following horizontal primes than they did vertical primes. They also answered spatial temporal questions more quickly than purely temporal questions. So Mandarin speakers answered purely temporal questions more quickly, yeah, um, com- for vertical primes than horizontal, answered spatial temporal questions more quickly after horizontal primes compared to vertical primes. So
Okay.
there was an overall effect on English speakers of the prime, but did not have an effect on Mandarin speakers.
All
Okay,
right.
so the conclusion, it was found that native English speakers think differently about time compared to native Mandarin speakers. So English speakers faster after horizontal primes. So what does this indicate?
That they view time differently, like before and after.
Yeah, so it indicates a habit of thinking about time in a horizontal manner. Yeah,
Okay.
and the reverse is true for Mandarin speakers. So English speakers were what manner,
Horizontal,
and Mandarin.
vertical.
Very good. So um yeah, this was evident in Mandarin speakers even though they were being tested using the English language. Yeah.
Okay.
Therefore, it shows that the native language had an effect on how they thought about time. Because if the native language did not have an impact, then because it was conducted in English, they would have been thinking in English.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So I want you to note all of that down. Okay,
Okay.
and then we can continue. So what is sorry, what are the other parts that you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the linguistic relativism, or
I was thinking of like let's see. um I think it's like the differences in communication, like communication between animal communication features of language, like, and similarities and differences between human and animal communication.
Okay, so we'll go to animal communication next.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Miss, I'm done.
All right, so now we will move on to how communication is different in humans and animals. Okay,
All right.
all right, so what does the term communication, what does that refer to?
The exchange. It's like the exchange of information. Exchange of, yeah, the exchange of information or ideas through language.
Okay, very good. Um, so just to expand that a little more, information and feelings are exchanged and understood. Therefore, language is a form of communication which uses what? Do you know?
Um, I'm not sure.
An intricate system of signals, symbols, and rules to express thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
Okay, so we know that certain creatures have a communication system. Do you know what creatures would these be?
Pardon?
Do you know which creatures have a communication system? Can you think of any?
Um, like ants or bees, maybe.
Okay, yeah. Dolphins and birds as well. So you know dolphins do the clicking thing, right? And birds
Yeah.
do the singing thing. Yeah. So but we are unable to understand most of what is communicated within other species, yeah, other than dolphins and birds. So it's difficult to work with animals when trying to find out their communication systems because this can cause them undue stress, yeah. Therefore experiments are limited due to ethics, yeah.
Yeah.
So you see how sometimes ethics limits us. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So the features of language. What are the most important features of language?
There's semanticy, structure dependence, productivity or creativity, and displacement.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. And can you go into detail for these?
So, semanticity is like when you use words or symbols to represent objects or certain actions.
Yeah.
Structure dependence under is like understanding the patterns and rules of language. Like, for example, um, like when you use words and you put them in the right order. Like, for example, like it's like the like the boy the boy pats the dog. You wouldn't say the dog pats the boy because it doesn't make sense. So yeah.
Yeah. And this can vary from language to language.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Next one.
Um, the next one is displacement. So displacement is the ability to discuss about things that are not um, present.
Such as.
Like, um, like, like for example, like you're talking about like let's say you saw a dolphin yesterday, and then you tell your friends, "Oh, I saw a dolphin yesterday." Like the dolphin isn't in front of you, but you're able to say that, "Oh, you saw a dolphin yesterday." I'm not sure how to
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Very good. Anything? What's the last one?
The last one is productivity or creativity, and this is the ability to produce a new sentence or use words that someone else can understand. So, like, um, basically, when you like being able to communicate your point properly, like that.
Good. Yeah. Very good. Okay. All right. So we will do a little activity now. Okay, I sent it to you. So write it down and then do your answer and then we can discuss, alright?
Okay. Okay, miss, I am done.
All right, so what do you have?
Okay, so I said, I'm sitting on a plastic chair with a bright green desk. And I also said, I'm currently in a music room, so there are lots of musical instruments everywhere, such as guitars and pianos.
Okay, how was it?
It was quite easy.
Yeah? Okay,
Yeah,
very good. Yep. So sometimes it can be easy, sometimes it can be very difficult. If I were
yeah.
to ask you to give me more information in lesser words, how would you feel about that?
I would just say I'm in, I would say I'm in a music room, but I'm sitting on a green desk and on a plastic chair. But I feel like it's not like
More
this.
information.
Yeah, like I feel
Yeah.
like when you want to communicate to someone, I feel like it's really hard to like
Yeah?
communicate very vaguely. Like I feel like you need like it's like you need to give like more information.
Yeah, yeah.
In that aspect, it's quite difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. So um you see how like language is so complicated, right, in this
Yeah.
regard. Yeah. Okay, so um so as you're probably aware, right, animals
Mhm,
have a variety of
mhm,
different ways in order to be able to communicate successfully, right?
yeah.
So like you said just now, you mentioned bees, so there are birds as well. So birds chirp and sing, um,
Mhm,
and then bees dance, yeah, and ants use some, well, they are thought to use some form of chemical to
mhm,
communicate, yeah. However, it has never been found that there is actual speaking between
mhm,
animals, even though they are able to communicate very effectively.
mhm.
Okay, so how is human and animal communication similar and different? So let's use the four features of
Mhm.
language to draw this comparison. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So for semantics, can you think of any way to draw the comparison?
Um. um I don't know. Wait. It's like um maybe like maybe like because semanticity is like you use words or symbols to represent objects, so I don't think animals would use words, but I think they would use a lot of um, symbols or symbolic things that would help them communicate. Like for example, if they see like thunder, oh no, if they see lightning or hear thunder, they may like that could like register in their head that, oh, like it's gonna rain, so they would like communicate to the rest of their group, and they could like take cover, like
Yeah,
some.
but they're not using that symbol to communicate, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So so basically for semantics, yeah, I'll just go through it now. So so we will draw a comparison to
Mhm.
young chimps, yeah, cute little
Okay.
chimps. So although young chimps and young children may show very similar ways of communicating to a certain age,
Mhm.
after a chimp's ability to communicate stops developing, but
Mhm.
a child's ones continue. Yeah. So the
Ah.
complexity of human lives means that humans have more to communicate, and therefore
Mhm.
this makes their interactions far more complex. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you um sometimes we would draw a comparison between humans and chimpanzees, but um w- what we're saying here is that because chimpanzees just survive, but we tend to work towards thriving, so our lives are much more complex, so we have more to communicate,
Mhm.
therefore interactions are again more complex. Okay, So it is also thought that whilst humans understand the meanings behind symbols, animals do not. Okay?
Mm.
How about displacement?
Um. Hold on, miss. I'm gonna write a couple things
Okay.
down. Uh. So, okay. Um. Displacement. Like displacement is the ability to. I don't think they can do that. I don't think animals can do that.
Okay.
Like they,
So um in 1994, guess what animal
Mhm.
we are going to use again?
Chimps.
Yeah, cute little chimps.
That's
um
so cute, actually, though.
they are until a certain point, because like I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cute if like we reared a chimp alongside our child? And then I found out that like at one point of their development, they start like throwing each other around because they're like learning skills to survive in the wild, right?
Oh
And
my god.
apparently, like, yeah, so their little siblings and friends survive it, but if it was a human, that human would be like split into like 10. So
Oh my
yeah.
god. That's scary.
Yeah, so they're cute till like a certain point. But yeah, um in 1994,
Mhm.
linguist Steven Pinker showed
Mhm.
a chimp had learned to use a symbol on a keyboard in responding to a question, but yeah, that chimp did not know what the question was asking. Yeah,
Mhm.
so displacement was shown by the chimp at a later time when asked to get an apple from upstairs when other closer apples could have been chosen.
Mm.
Okay, all right, how about structure?
Um. Patterns and rules of language. Um. Animals do not have like written languages, so they usually rely on communication through like um signals
Mm-hmm.
that their same species would understand. So like for example, um like you know how like dogs or cats, they can smell if there's like if there was another dog in the room or if there is another dog in the room. So it's like dogs like will leave their like scent to like maybe like wear other dogs off or something like that. Like I don't know, but um uh and it's like, or maybe they have callings like crickets, crickets for example, like when they want to mate they'll have like a little like their own like calling. So that's their way of communicating to like, that's a male cricket's way of communicating to another female, saying like, hey, like, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Okay, and how about production?
um yeah, like human languages is like, you can produce with human languages, you can produce sentences using those languages. However, animals do not have a written language. um but like, because I guess that's like a difference between human and animal communication, is that animals do not have language, so they are unable to make a sentence using anything. So
Okay, yes, so to draw the comparison, right?
Mhm.
Humans seem to have unlimited capacity to produce language that means different things, yeah? And
Okay.
for animals, this seems to be limited in their ability to communicate new ideas.
Yeah,
All
okay.
right. Okay.
Mhm.
So now what we're going to do is, can you write down like this question? Basically, explain why productivity and structure are so important in human language.
uh Explain why productivity and what else, miss?
Structure
Structure.
are so important in human language.
Okay. mm, Structure. I think it's because since you're using language, and human language can be perceived differently depending on how you use it. So I think it's very important for a human to know productivity and structure in order to get their point across, and in order to use the language correctly in order to communicate.
Yeah. Okay, very good. All right. So, I think we have gone through basically communication between humans and animals. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, do you have any other questions in terms of like this topic?
Um, I think, could we go through like uh a bit like the strengths and weaknesses of linguistic determinism?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Strengths and okay. So I think we will go through both the linguistic determinism and the other one as well, because I think it comes together, right? So
Oh
linguistic
yeah, yeah.
relativism and
Mhm.
determinism. But before that, I want you to read through this really short article, because it is in relation to the what we were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so hold on, let me find. So I want you to read through this and see like how this Sue Savage person, and her case, how does it relate to like what we were talking about, and basically the topic of communication in general. Okay.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. Miss, I finished reading it.
Good. How did you find it?
It's really interesting actually. It's like it shows that we are able to communicate, like people are able to communicate with like other species without actually using language.
Yeah.
So like that's so interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah,
Mm.
okay. So now we will move on to basically the relativism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So can you tell me um what linguistic relativism is?
It's like the idea that language affects our view of the world.
Yeah. So the that means that the language that we speak can
Mm-hmm.
influence the way in which we think of and view the world around us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So um w- for example, right, the meaning underpinning the word recycling
Mm-hmm.
includes the reason for this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
uh what it is, the benefits of it, and so on. Yeah. This would not make sense where recycling does not take place in that culture. Okay. So um we can look at how this is applied in Boroditsky or Frank et al. Yeah.
Okay.
So do you know what do you know about Frank et al?
Um, they don't really like um what's it called? They don't specify it in my textbook. They just mention it, but they
Yeah.
don't like, specify the anything about it.
Oh, okay. So Frank et al. Just you can actually read up on it. You can let me know if you need time to. Yeah, but
Okay.
basically what it is it was the study of the Piraha people of
Mhm.
Brazil, and it highlights how language can shape views of the world, although it is not entirely determinant of these views.
Mm.
Okay, right. So linguistic determinism. What is
Mhm.
that?
It's the idea that language limits our view of the world.
Yeah, so it proposes a more fixed, stronger view of languages and thoughts. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so it means that our language determines our views of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it's more than an influence. It's more of a structure or for thinking and
Mm-hmm.
understanding. Yeah, so
Okay.
this means that in linguistic determinism, the um, it claims that language does determine how you understand the world.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, that society can only be understood through the use of language, yeah, to name social features.
Okay.
Okay. So you have to have examples to highlight weaknesses of your explanations as well. Yeah.
Mm.
So we could use the concept of invention in our evaluations. Yeah. So where inventions such as the computer, mobile phone, or car requires thoughts and views of the item, um, or concept before there was language to explain what had been created.
Mm.
Okay. And also we can also talk about how words can change their meaning because of societal influences. Therefore, the ways that society influences how we think or use language, yeah, rather than language determining how we view society, etc.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Mm.
So let's just do like a quick question in relation to Boroditsky. Yeah, I think you understand the um, study quite well, so this should be quite simple for you. It's just an application question. All right. So
Okay.
I sent it to you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, the question was Kumi lives in China, speaks Mandarin. Her friend Bethany from Wales planning to visit her soon. Kumi explains the visit as being earlier than April, and
Mhm.
Bethany says it will be before April. How would Boroditsky explain this difference between how they explain the date of the visit?
Okay, so Boroditsky states that language about time affects how time is perceived. And this study showed that English speakers view time horizontally, which means before and after, whereas Mandarin speakers view time vertically, which is up and down. This would explain the difference between Kumi and Bethany's way of explaining the date of the visit.
Okay, yeah, very good. All right. So you understand that. So we have another activity to do, and this is in regard to our discussion on communication.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So what do you have for this question?
Okay, so I wrote, Oscar is unable to speak or comprehend language like Elizabeth can. However, he can understand the signals that she gives and can analyze patterns in Elizabeth's behavior, which would like explain why whenever Elizabeth calls Oscar for dinner, he immediately comes to the kitchen.
Good. Okay, and you can use case studies to back this up as well. Yeah. So we discussed quite a few case studies in relation to this communication and like the how it's different between humans and animals. So you can use case studies to back it up as well.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. So would you like to go through examples of nonverbal communication?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. So now we will go through like examples of non-verbal communication. Okay,
Okay.
so it would be face expressions, eye contact, all of that. So can you tell me what you remember about this?
Um, I know that cultural differences play a lot in terms of nonverbal communication. Um, because certain nonverbal communications could be interpreted differently by different cultures. Like, for example, looking someone in the eye is is considered to be a sign of honesty in Western cultures, wherever in some cultures, such as Asian cultures, looking someone in the eye could be quite rude. And yeah,
Okay. Yep. Anything else?
um, like like um, like examples or
All right. So we'll go through it together. Yeah. So,
okay.
all right. So, um, non-verbal communication, yeah, it actually make up between 50 to 80% of our human communication episode. Yeah.
Oh,
So um facial expressions are sometimes considered to have universality. Yeah,
mm,
meaning that certain facial expressions of specific emotions like happiness, sadness, anger, they are recognized by people regardless of culture or spoken language.
okay.
So um eye contact, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it not only communicates some meaning but also indicates the engagement and interest of the people involved in the communication.
Mm,
Yeah.
all right.
Body language includes two things. What are the two things?
Um, like, is it like gestures and postures?
Very good. Yeah. So um you know the different types of postures?
Um, I think so. I know like when you fold your arms, or if you cross your legs, it's like considered like defensive.
Yeah, and also um yeah, so open close body language or use of mirroring. Yeah, you know mirroring?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of investigators actually use this, yeah, when they are talking to like a suspect. Yeah, so
Yeah.
also different gestures convey different meanings. Yeah, so illustrator gestures and regulating gestures. All right, so the next part we're going to talk about is personal space. So what is the concept of distances proposed by Edward Hall?
Pardon?
What is the concept of distance, do you know?
Um, like distance or like proximity.
Do you know the concept of distance by Edward Hall?
Um, oh yeah, I think I know.
Okay.
It's like it's like the amount of space that we have around us and how we use these spaces, and it can also affect like our social interactions with other people.
Yeah. So Edward Hall, um, he coined the term proxemics.
Mm,
Yeah. So proxemics is the study of how we use space and our experiences and culture influence, and
mm,
how it influences our personal space. Okay.
yeah.
So it highlights several factors that influence personal space.
Mm.
So, what are the factors that may influence personal space?
Um, could it be like how close of a relationship you have to a certain person?
Yeah,
Like let's say like if you're not really comfortable with someone, maybe like because like I think there's like a diagram also of like the proxemics. It's like intimate space, personal space, social space, and public space. So like if you weren't really that close with someone, you wouldn't allow them to like come anywhere close to the intimate space or the personal space. So, and in the contrary, if you are really close with someone, then um, you would probably let them into like the personal space or the intimate space. For example, you wouldn't give someone you don't know a hug like that.
Yeah, okay. All right. Um and okay, so we are going to talk about the factors, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
of that influences personal space. Okay? So some of the factors would include cultural differences. Okay? So the personal space we are comfortable with can be influenced by this. Yeah. So Western society is often referred to as an individualistic society.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how does this affect personal space?
Um, it's like individualistic is like, is it because like they don't like interact a lot with people, so maybe they wouldn't be so close with people? Like,
So they are basically people that prioritizes their own needs rather than the collective community
yeah.
and independent. So they keep a relatively large distance from other people. Yeah,
Mm.
and when they greet someone new, a handshake is typically used. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
whereas a heavily populated country such as
Mm-hmm.
India, being close even when in contact with strangers is common, yeah, and
Yeah.
this won't make them feel uncomfortable. So
Mm-hmm.
the reason behind this is standing close to others is a common thing due to the lack of room for personal space. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
the next one is status differences. So,
Mm.
for example, if your boss pats you on your back and says, "Well done," this is acceptable.
Mm.
But if an employee does this, will it be well received? Probably not, right?
Mm.
Because um, why the difference?
Is it like hierarchy or something like that?
Mm-hmm. So the higher status of the boss will allow them to provide feedback, yeah,
Mm.
and that will be well received. But the lower status of the employee doesn't permit them to have close proximity to their boss, yeah, therefore inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so sometimes people actually use personal space as a tool to enforce their high status. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
can you think of any times when this is the case?
Um, like 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 high status as in like, is it like a social status, like a position in a job, or like, or could it be like how, like the like the position you hold to someone else, like for example like some like a mom or a dad, like that.
Actually could be anything, yeah. So what I was saying is if you want to enforce your high status
Mm-hmm.
against or using that as a tool,
Mm-hmm.
um sometimes an example would be when bullies try to get in other people's faces. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it is a form of violating their personal space, the other person's personal space, therefore instilling fear that can be used to show and maintain their perceived higher status.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one would be gender difference. Can you think of a way in which this would be the case?
Like for proxemics.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like, for example, like women would typically be more comfortable when be more comfortable being quite close around women, whereas like other women, whereas like women may not be like very comfortable with men being so close to them. So it's like, and the same thing goes for men too. So maybe there would be a larger proximic between males and females, like if they aren't so close to each other.
Good. Okay. And it's also important to note that gender differences are likely to differ in people of different ages and depending on the setting or context of the situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are different types of personal space that Edward Hall proposed. Do you
Hmm.
know of them?
Like different types. Is it like the intimate space, personal space, social space, and public space?
Yes. So
Uh,
can you, yeah, so let's start with uh so during Hall's research on proxemics, he identified these four types of personal space, right? So let's start with intimate space.
okay. So intimate space is usually like 0 to 0.5 meters, and basically this intimate space is usually the space where most of your very close friends or your partner would enter. So it's like if you have a meaningful relationship and a strong bond between a person, you are more likely to let them enter this space.
Yeah. Okay. Distance is usually about 15 to 45 cm. Yeah.
Okay.
Examples of this type of personal space are when people hug, kiss, and touch. How
Mm.
about personal space?
Personal space um is like the space that we see as our own personal space. So it's like if someone invades that space, we may like someone we aren't familiar with, or someone we aren't familiar with, it will make us feel uncomfortable, anxious, and threatened. So this um this zone, like the personal space and the intimate space, is reserved for people who are extremely close to us.
Yeah. So usually, this distance is between 45 and 120 cm.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And how about social space?
Social space is basically like the space that um uh maybe like for social events, maybe if you're talking to someone new, like it's around 1.2 to 4 meters, and it's usually the space that um, you communicate with maybe like a couple like acquaintances or friends, like people who you aren't so close to, but it's just like it's enough space in order to keep a conversation going.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so people may keep the 1.2 distance when meeting someone they don't know well at all,
Mm.
such as delivery men. Yeah, but when they meet a friend from their previous school, maybe they will keep a closer distance. Okay,
Yeah.
how about public space?
Public space is usually like 4+ meters, and this is like when you really don't know somebody, like you have no relation to them or connection with them at all. So um, maybe it's like passerbys and um, like in a public area. So you'd probably keep your distance to like most people. Like,
Yeah, also common when we do public speaking activities, yeah,
mm-hmm.
such as presenting to our classmates.
Yeah.
Okay, so for personal space, there are a few things which are like our key points. Okay, so the first one would be personal space is the physical distance between one another. Yeah, personal space can be considered a boundary in which we feel comfortable. Therefore, these boundaries can be violated in specific situations, such
Okay.
as when confronting someone or if a person's unaware of the other person's boundaries.
Okay.
It's a form of non-verbal communication that allows us to express without saying anything the um and the intimacy of a relationship. Yeah. So our emotions and let others know when we are uncomfortable.
All right.
So Edward Hall coined the term proxemics, which is, what is proxemics?
It's like uh, the study of distances that people set between like themselves and others.
Yeah, and also, so it's the study of how we use space and how our experiences and culture influence personal space. All
Okay.
right, so there are several factors that influence the personal space that people feel comfortable with, and these would be culture, status, and gender differences.
Okay.
There and Hall identified four types of personal space: intimate, personal, social, and public space. Yeah, each growing in distance.
Okay.
All right. So, what are the three types of personal space?
Um, like, uh, I'm not sure.
Intimate, social, and public.
Oh, I thought it was like considered to be like four, cause like, I thought like intimate and personal were like different.
Oh no, no, no. I was asking for three examples. So there are four. Yeah, but I just needed three.
Hi. Yeah. Pardon?
So there are four, but I just needed three. So I meant like, tell me three out of four, kind of
Okay.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now we'll do like an application question. Okay. I hope that these questions are helping you understand the concept a little bit better. Yeah.
That is.
Yeah. I'm glad. All right. So I'm sending it to you now.
It's like it's like by using these questions, it's good because like you get to apply your knowledge and
Yeah.
then you can really like see how much you like truly understand it.
Yeah. I'm glad.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Kat.
Teachers one?
Huh?
Teachers one, teacher.
Pardon?
You study presentation?
Yeah. Okay. Bye bye.
All right. So let's go through the question. Yeah. So what do you have?
Okay, so it states there that Pamela and Andrew have been married for 11 years and they stand close to each other when talking. So, since they are married, this means that they have they've allowed each other to enter the intimate space with each other. So that's why they feel comfortable standing close to each other when they're talking. Um, so then it states that they have both known Daniel for 10 years and they are good friends. However, they do not stand as close to Daniel as they do with each other. And this is because, like, um, they, like, yes, they are friends with Daniel, but, um, you know, Daniel has not entered Daniel has not entered that intimate space with them, so they keep a distance up until personal space, because they've known each other for a long time. So that's the difference in proximus between Pamela, Andrew, and Daniel. And then it states there that they have a neighbor called Natalie, and they have known her for 3 years, but they do not stand as close to her as they do with Daniel. And this is because one, they've known Daniel for longer, and this means that um, they've probably established a stronger relationship with Daniel than they have with Natalie. So um, maybe like so that's why they stand um, quite far away from Natalie compared to how they are with Daniel. So this would probably be like between the personal space and the social space. So this is like the difference in proxemics between Pamela, Andrew, Daniel, and Natalie.
Okay, very good. Seems like you have grasped the concept. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so the next part is understanding the explanations of nonverbal communication. Okay, so we will talk a little bit on the evolutionary psychology. Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about this topic? What do you know about this topic?
Like pardon me, could you repeat that again? There's like drilling happening outside.
Okay, no worries. So can you tell me how, like, talk about explanations of nonverbal communication, including evolutionary psychology?
Okay, so basically, one of the um, one of the factors for nonverbal communication is culture, and this can affect personal space too. So cultural differences in nonverbal communication is like certain actions can be viewed, interpreted differently by different cultures, and um, for like in terms of like development and evolution, um, they use uh, Darwin's theory of evolution. So Darwin um, was very interested in um, like body language and facial expressions, and he basically like said like, oh, different, like for example, like when you're scared, like your mouth would probably be open and you have wide eyes, whereas if you're angry, your eyebrows would like arch up towards the center of your face, and you would bare your teeth, and that's like a sign of aggression. And Darwin suggested that these signals were very useful for humans in the past, and serve specific purposes. Like for example, when we were in the stone age, we didn't establish proper languages, so we technically communicated like how um, animals would have. So by like for example, it's kind of like cats hissing. When a cat hisses, oh, you know, like it's like they want you to stay away from them, and it's like a form of aggression. So the same thing applies to humans. They probably would have bared their teeth or like arched their eyebrows to show aggression and to show anger. So like nowadays, I mean like back then maybe like they would have like humans would have probably like pounced on people and like fought and like bit people, but nowadays since we're more civilized, we use language to convey our anger, and it definitely shows in our facial expressions too. But uh, basically it just like facial expressions and body language basically just assist communication besides using language. So yeah.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so I think you mentioned a lot about how um evolutionary psychology draws on the Darwinian theory. Yeah, and then you did make connections between examples of non-verbal connections. So you talked about facial expressions of anger, warning someone away, or just showing that you are angry. Yeah. And then you also mentioned like the explanation of Darwin's theory, including human survival techniques. Yeah. um no, I think you mentioned how if like you're nervous or something, your mouth will be wide open. Also, you can talk about the human survival techniques, right? So raising of the eyebrows in surprise would increase the field of vision, therefore allowing the individual to be more aware of what is around them at that point. Yeah. Also beneficial for you to understand that Darwin suggested that emotional expression was evolutionary, therefore universal. Yeah, this can be used to demonstrate a weakness of cultural differences in non-verbal communication. Do
Yeah.
you see how that is the case? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. So for our next session, I think do you is there anything else that you want to go through?
I think, let's see. I think it wouldn't hurt to go through Piaget and Vygotsky, like quite maybe just like a brief overview on it.
Okay.
And
And then we can try some past year questions together.
yeah.
Okay? Yeah.
This one part of the self. I think uh the 16 PF
Uh-huh.
personality factor assessment is the trait theory one.
Okay.
So maybe we could go through that and um, Vygotsky and Piaget before we do past year
Okay.
papers.
Yeah, no problem. We
Okay.
can do that together. I'll see you later, all right?
Okay. Thank you so much, Miss.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
See you.